ahead and get started on our final meeting before crossover. And welcome everyone. We've got two bills that we have not heard yet on our docket. We'll go ahead and begin with House. Actually, let's take attendance. Sorry. All right, we'll close that. All right, we'll go ahead and get started this morning with House Bill 68, Delegate Anderson.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief. So the problem is in Hampton Roads and other military communities is we have active duty military members that live there long term, sometimes 10, 15, 20 years. They're active duty. They buy houses and live there. And the problem that we have is that for taxing purposes, they remain their domicile residences in other states, South Carolina, things like that. Their kids go to our schools. They are participating. They're paying consumption taxes and real estate taxes. They're just not registering in Virginia because they don't want to pay the state income tax. That's the problem. And these members are members of our community. And what this bill does is it allows those members and their spouses to register to vote in Virginia if they want to without changing their tax status. There's a federal law on this point. It's called the MOVE Act that says that the states basically get to decide how this works. And what this does is it makes a very small code change that says if you're active duty and you are in this state and your spouse are in this state and you live here, you can vote here. Now, it doesn't mean you can also vote in your home state because you have to disenroll, but it gives the active duty military members the option to registering to vote in Virginia if they so choose. It does not conflict with federal law. The summary, the fiscal impact statement even shows that we modeled the MOVE Act, the Federal MOVE Act, in the language. And so it really is just up to Virginia whether we want to give active duty military members basically the same status we give to students. Students who go to JMU can register to vote in Virginia, and I'm just asking us to give the active duty military members the same status that we give students. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Delegate Anderson. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone in opposition? Okay. Did we have anyone that signed up? Okay. All right, questions from the committee. Delegate Krezek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have there been any other states have taken this MOVE Act up?
So the MOVE Act basically is the floor of what states have to do, and Virginia is in full compliance with the MOVE Act. What the MOVE Act says is it says it's up to basically the state to decide what the voting domicile residence is, and so that's not it. But I will also point out just one other thing, Delegate, and just so you know, on the Department of Elections website, where it says, how do you vote, how to register, it says you must be a resident of Virginia, and then they put a parenthesis here, and it says a person who has come to Virginia for temporary purposes and intends to return to another state is not considered a resident for voting purposes. And so I think that that's wrong. I mean, obviously I see things differently maybe than some of you, but I live in Hampton Roads, and we have a big community here. I don't know the answer to your question, I'm sorry, if other states have done this, but I think it's a big issue in Hampton Roads. We have a lot of people that live there for decades or more, and they're just not voting because they're told, if you're ever going to go home, you can't vote, you can't register to vote in Virginia.
Delegate Adams. Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wondered, is there a procedure about disenrolling or a penalty for double voting?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. So when you register to vote, there is a question on the application that says, where are you also registered to vote? A service member or anybody would have to say South Carolina. And then they sign a form, and it's a felony to make a false statement on that application. So there's a huge disincentive to try to double enroll. So if they wrote South Carolina on there and they register to vote, then Virginia notifies automatically South Carolina that they're registered here, and the service anybody would not be allowed to double vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Sickles.
Yeah, I just want to make an observation that probably nobody has as many or more military people than I have in my district. I have Fort Belvoir next door. People work at the Pentagon. My district is very convenient, jumping off point to get to the Pentagon on 2 different metro lines. And I have never had anyone ask me to vote who is in active duty military, not ever. And a lot of them do stay because they join the military industrial complex, the Beltway bandits, so to speak. They stay around and they vote then. They've never said to me, "Oh, Mark, I really want to vote here." I just have never heard it. And secondarily, if they have kids in school, we get a federal payment for each of the kids that are in school in our area from out of state. And I don't know how that affects this, but one time, everyone's talked about Thomas Jefferson High School because it's the #1 high school in America.
Delegate Sickles.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
I know I'm making a statement.
Okay.
I don't think we really need this. I haven't heard anybody ask for it. And I have a huge military population in my district. And they take advantage of a lot of what I was about to say. I went to one house where they had three of their kids were in Thomas Jefferson High School. This is the #1 high school in America. They're not paying any local taxes for that. And they didn't ask me to vote. They didn't ask me. They're having a good time in Virginia. We treat them well. Want to be the best state. We have a lot of military investment here, #1 state, and I just don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions from the committee?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
All right. Delegate Adams.
Delegate, just looking at the language of the bill, can you speak to the provision that specifies that these are members who are on active duty with permanent orders stationed in the Commonwealth as opposed to what other type of orders? And do you know how, is there sort of a method of verification for that?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So you're speaking about line 134 of the bill. So military service members who come to Virginia come here sometimes temporarily, and that would just be for maybe a training provision, and they'll get an order that will say you have to temporarily report to Oceana for some period of time. Permanent orders mean that they're going to be here for some significant period of time. I don't know if it's 1 year or more than 1 year, but it's somebody who is here and is here for until the military says otherwise. So it's specific in the orders, and I can specifically say from my own personal experience as a gun shop owner, we can sell handguns to individuals with permanent orders, and I know what permanent orders look like, and we can't sell them to people with temporary orders, and it specifically says it in the very first part of the top of whether it's permanent or temporary.
I have a question for council. Can you clarify the time frame for permanent orders and how would that impact disenrolling a person off of the rolls in another state? So if they were to register to vote in our state, if they were under permanent orders here, how would that impact taking them off their rolls in another state?
Madam Chair, as the Delegate Anderson mentioned, we are part of interstate cross-check programs. We do exchange of lists of registered voters with other states regularly. So if someone was here for whatever reason and registered to vote, if they were registered in another state, they are supposed to indicate that on their registration application. But if not, there's still processes the department does to make sure that their home state or their state where they're registered knows that they've registered in another state so they can have that canceled.
Delegate Lefwich.
Just a comment, Madam Chair. So my neighbor is in the military, and he pays real estate tax, local tax, and tuition at William & Mary and Virginia Tech. And so I think he should be able to have a say in how that money is being spent. I appreciate you bringing the bill.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Chris Piper.
Oh.
I'm not trying to do any harm to this.
Okay. All right. Delegate Krezek.
So right now with military folks, isn't there a presumption that their family would be able to vote, like the spouse, for example? How does that work?
So, probably more comfortable with the registrar answering the question.
Okay,
but
sorry.
The registrar, Madam Chair, the registrar makes the ultimate decision on who's registered and whether their residency qualifies them as a registered voter.
Delegate Head?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for clarification on this. So, absent doing this, well, let me back up because I actually have two questions. So you compared this to a college student. Is it possible now, and that a college student, for example, from out of state, who's resident in a dorm, can register to vote in Virginia and vote in Virginia because they declare that their place of domicile, even though that may or may not be temporary. But is that currently the situation right now for
Yes.
that?
Yes.
As I thought.
And that's a major source of consternation on some folks in parts of the state. But
Indeed, it is. But along with that, so absent us doing this, the people in the situation as you have described it are not, just for clarification one more time, are not eligible to register to vote if we do not do this.
I think that as Ms. Piper said, it's up to the discretion of the registrar, and I think there's some inconsistencies about this.
And so this just makes it consistent.
That's right. And I think that it starts off with this very first page that I just talked about, because there's a disincentive right on the first page that tells basically military members don't bother voting here because you're going to be leaving. And so anybody who would go to our page would see that and say, oh, I shouldn't even try. And so I think this just codifies that you are allowed to vote here if you are permanently stationed in Virginia, if you want to. You're not required, but if you want to. Madam Chair, do I need to stick around for the full because of the negative? I'll give the same presentation if you would like. Oh, this is the full? Oh, okay, great. See you on the floor. Okay. I was like, this is a big subcommittee. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
You may want to be present on the floor today.
Yes, thank you. I'll take that advice. Thank
That's a big committee, too. Delegate Walker. House Bill 1140 is before us.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and I do
Good
recognize
morning.
the full committee here this morning, so thank you for taking time to listen. The purpose of HB 1140 is fairly simple. Virginia law currently requires that the general registrars to provide notice of cancellation of a voter's registration to vote by mail. The address listed in the voter's registration record. This bill adds a provision that requires the general registrars to provide notice of cancellation of a voter's registration to the voter by email to the email address provided on the voter registration application if it was provided. The Virginia voter registration application currently has a portion available to provide your email to the general registrar. This bill serves to provide an extra layer of notification to voters when the registration has been canceled for whatever reason, especially when there is already an option in place if voters choose to fill that portion out. The purpose of this legislation is not expected to have any financial impact. Results of this bill is in the city of Lynchburg, we have 5 colleges. And last year in the 2021 election, there were a number of college students that had been counseled because of the previous year presidential election in 2020. And so when I spoke with the registrar, they were sent a notice to their P.O. box on their school campus. And the individual students were never aware that they had been counseled prior to election because not having this extra option here of email. You know, most college students now, everything is email. Nobody checks their mail. And so as a result of this, there were a number of students in my localities and some of the colleges that were actually not able to vote this past time because of that lack of notice. So this is just giving one more opportunity for those that provide the emails on their application as well as their physical address to be notified if there's a voter cancellation. That's the purpose of the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Walker. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of this piece of legislation? Anyone in opposition? Okay, do we have anyone virtually signed up? Okay, all right. Any questions from the committee for the patron? Okay, Delegate Simons.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a comment, if I could. I do think this is a good idea. I have met students who did a transaction at the DMV and accidentally switched their registration without realizing it because of the interface. When you check out you do a transaction at the DMV and it automatically registers you. So I think that this would be very helpful to send an email to those students because it's something that has come up a lot in my district.
So are you making a motion?
Yeah, move to report.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report House Bill 1140. House Bill 1140 reports 20-0. Thank you, Delegate Walker. You may want to add TikTok next year to it. Thank you. Okay, all right. I'm just trying to be comical on Friday. All right, we'll start with their subcommittee reports. All right, subcommittee number 1, Chairman Head.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had first up on the report is House Bill 46, patroned by Delegate Ware. This dealt again with voter identification and photo IDs and permanent absentee voter list repeal. The bill as presented required presentation of a form of identification containing a photograph in order to vote. Bill repeals a provision of law permitting a voter who doesn't have one of the required forms of identification to vote after signing a statement, subject to felony penalties for false statement that he is the named registered voter that he claims to be, and instead the bill provides that such voter is entitled to cast a provisional ballot. Bill also repeals the provisions of law by which any registered voter may apply to receive absentee ballots for all elections in which he is eligible to vote and remains on the list until the voter requests in writing to be removed from the list, the voter's registration is canceled or placed on inactive status pursuant to law, or the voter moves to a different address not in the same county or city of his resignation. The substitute also limits the period that absentee voting in person is available to the 21 days prior to the election. It allows localities to offer extended hours for absentee voting in person, repeals the provision of law allowing an absentee ballot that is returned after the close of polls to be counted if it's postmarked by Election Day and arrives by the Friday after the election, shifts the responsibility of processing absentee ballots before Election Day from the General Registrar to officers of elections, and makes other changes to the pre-processing of absentee ballots. The subcommittee recommend reporting with the substitute. Substitute is available on LIS and IHOD. We recommend reporting that substitute 6-4, and I would so move.
Is there a motion to adopt the substitute?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. The substitute is before us.
And Madam Chair, the motion was to report the substitute on a vote of 6-4, and I so move.
All right. House Bill 46. House Bill 46 reports out 11 to 9. All right, Chairman Head.
And next, Madam Chair, we have House Bill 305, which is your bill. The substitute significantly made changes to the bill, so I'll just explain that because it now substantially narrows the focus of the bill so that it deals only with the State Board of Elections and the Department of Elections. It adds 2 members to the State Board, bringing the number to 7, and makes the board responsible for appointing the Commissioner of Elections. The bill also removes the governor's ability to appoint a deputy commissioner and a confidential policy advisor to the Department of Elections, making the board and the department independent. Subcommittee recommended reporting with the substitute 6-4, and I would so move. So I guess we'll first move the substitute.
All those in favor say aye.
Oh. And Madam Chair, now that we've adopted the substitute, there is also a line amendment for that substitute, and I don't know if Council can report that.
Yeah, Delegate Head, Madam Chair, everyone should also have a copy of the line amendment at their seat. But after line 144 of the substitute, the not elegant looking LIS version, but just the bill drafted version, we will insert, in the event a vacancy occurs in the office of the Commissioner, the Director of Operations at the department shall be vested with the powers and shall perform all the duties of the Commissioner until the board appoints a person to fill the vacancy. Vacancy shall be filled in the manner of the original appointment and shall be for the unexpired term.
Thank you, and I would consider that a friendly amendment. Would ask the committee to adopt that amendment.
Well, Madam Chair, and second.
Okay, so we've adopted the substitute, we've adopted the amendment, House Bill 305.
And the recommendation of the subcommittee was to report on a vote of 6-4, and I would so move.
Okay, House Bill 305 is before us with a substitute. Okay, continuing with Subcommittee 1 report.
Okay, and finally, Madam
Close the
Chair.
roll. Sorry.
Finally, Madam Chair, we have House Bill 1102, also your bill, which is the gubernatorial appointments to the boards, memberships, and terms. It revises the length of terms for persons appointed to several commodity and commodity-related boards within the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and further standardizes the term dates so all terms begin on July 1st and end on June 30th. Bill amends the membership of the Virginia Board of Asbestos-Lead and Home Inspectors, standardizes the term dates for appointments to the Board of Visitors of Mount Vernon, and clarifies that certain members of the A.L. Philpott Manufacturing Extension Partnership Board of Trustees may name a designee to serve on the board. The bill corrects the staggering of terms for the Virginia Commission for the Arts and the State Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board. And the subcommittee recommended reporting on a vote of 10-0, and I would so move.
Okay. All right, is there a second? All right. House Bill 1102 is before us. Let's get ready to vote. Okay, House Bill 1102 reports 20-0.
And that completes my report, Madam Chair.
Okay. Subcommittee number 2 report, Chairman O'Quinn, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Subcommittee 2 met bright and early this week, and we reported 3 bills, the first of which is House Bill 542 from Delegate Batten, which is a relatively simple bill that reclassifies assistant registrars as deputy registrars. Subcommittee recommended reporting 8-0, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's get ready to vote for House Bill 542. House Bill 542 reports out 20-0.
All right, Madam Chairman. The second bill we have is House Bill 895 from Delegate Kilgore, which requires local electoral boards and registrars to perform certain risk-limiting audits, which are defined in the bill under the supervision of the Department of Elections and in accordance with the procedures prescribed by the State Board of Elections. The bill provides that localities are required to participate in such audits at least once every 5 years. The provisions of this bill requiring that such audits be conducted for at least one randomly selected contested race for General Assembly. For any other contested race, it's necessary to ensure that each locality participates in these audits at least once every 5 years, has a delayed effective date of July 1, 2023. And the provision requiring that such audits be conducted for one race that requires certification by the State Board has a delayed effective date of July 1, 2024. The subcommittee recommended reporting with a substitute, which I would move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So the subcommittee recommended reporting with that substitute 8-0, and I so move.
All right, House Bill 895 with a substitute is properly before us. Let's get ready to vote.
Sorry about that.
That's good. House Bill 895 reports out 20-0. Chairman O'Connor.
Madam Chairman, the final bill we have was House Bill 1082 from Delegate Leftwich, which removes a provision that requires local elections for mayor, members of a local governing body, or members of an elected school board to be held at the time of the November general election. The bill allows cities and towns that made the transition between July 1, 21 and July 1, 22 to provide by ordinance for its reversal. The subcommittee recommended reporting 5-3, and I so move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report House Bill 1082. House Bill 1082 reports out 11-9.
Madam Chairman, that completes our report.
Okay, that completes all of our work on the House bills. I really appreciate everyone's work on the subcommittees and in the full committee. And we'll take a break until we start getting the Senate bills referred over to us. And look forward to working with you over the next 3 weeks. Thanks so much. We're adjourned.